So the topic I'm going to be speaking on today is actually the second of a series. The first one I did a few months ago for AAP had to do with understanding your value as an admin professional. Today I'm going to talk to you about career branding for you in 2021 and how the post-pandemic economy is probably impacting you. So when you think about what has changed since COVID for admin professionals, there have been a lot of there's been a lot more uncertainty, I guess, at least in my circles from the admins that I've spoken to with respect to their careers. And you know, should they be upskilling? Should they be reskilling? The World Economic Forum has said that by 2022, so really less than a year, over 50% of the workforce is going to require retraining of some sort. So that's pretty daunting. The other daunting statistic has come from the fact that the average shelf life of skills, so the duration of skills that we can actually apply a skill for, has shrunk from about 30 years to 6 years. So this is really, you know, a gut punch, because when we start thinking about the magnitude of change that comes along with it, it's really pretty overwhelming. So just imagine that whatever it is that you're learning today is going to require relearning in 6 years, and who knows, it might even be less. So by the way, if anyone has any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat and I will get to them if I see them. Otherwise, just feel free to unmute yourself and I'm happy to answer them. We will do a little Q&A at the end. I do plan to be an hour from start to finish. So if anybody wants to wait until the end, I'm happy to answer questions then as well. So a lot of the work that we do is in career management and helping organizations sort of navigate their way through this whole new future of work, as I call it, this whole new reality of work. And the one thing that I have noticed right across the board, we work with professionals, administrators, athletes from all over the country. And one of the common pieces of feedback that I've received is that the job market is becoming far more competitive. And that is more reason for you not to rely solely on your hard skills. I like to tell our clients that what is replacing this, there's no such thing as job security anymore. But what is replacing it is career security. So the only way to have that career security, though, is to know your brand and your value, or as I call it, your secret sauce. So this is something we're going to be talking about today. So one thing that's important to understand is that a job will be ripped away from you in a second. Maybe that's happened to some of you. But knowing your value, knowing your brand stays with you for life. So that is how to get career security. So if anyone is a little bit concerned about their career futures and job market certainty or uncertainty, just know that one of the big paradigm shifts that has occurred, I mean, it's been happening for a number of years, but COVID has just escalated it. And that is this whole movement to marketing yourself, selling yourself, advertising yourself, not just from your hard skills, but from a value and from a brand perspective. So the difference, so there's a lot of overlap between branding and value. But your value is simply the output of your brand. And everybody needs a brand, especially in 2021, especially if you are an admin professional. And so I'm going to take you through some steps as to how to build a brand from scratch. And then if any of you are interested in learning more, we have, you know, day courses and whatnot, other professional development that you're welcome to register for on our website. So when it comes to your brand, it really comes down to asking yourself, how have you served others? You know, what value have you provided to others over the course of your life and your career? And when you think of how you've been of service, you might surprise yourself. So there's a number of ways that you can ask that question. You know, what is it that people thank you for? So go back to the last week or the last month and ask yourself, what is it that your boss, your colleagues, your family, your friends might have thanked you for? And there's going to be a clue in there of what your brand and what your value might be. So doing this work, I want you to picture this very much like peeling back the layers of an onion. And it's really hard to just nail your brand in an hour session. It's almost impossible. But what I'm hoping I'm going to do today is to give you some food for thought so that you can start the process. But when you were thinking about your brand, you guys, I also really want you to be thinking about the value that that brand provides others. Because a brand that does not serve others is not really a brand. So it's not all just the glitzy, glossy, stuff that you might put on your resume or your LinkedIn profile or, how you look. Yeah, okay, that's all part of your brand. But branding, career branding, is much deeper than that. It's not near as superficial. So we talked about value in the last webinar that I did for AAP. And what we talked about was, the value of an admin professional is very multifold. Many of you are able to connect people and departments. Okay, there's value there. Many of you are paid to keep projects and people on track. Many of you are paid to solve problems. I mean, technical, something breaks down and boom, they need you. What would they do without you? I know that with my admin team, I would be absolutely lost without them. Our organization could not run without our administrators. So other pieces of value, types of value, you have been brand ambassadors for the organization. Some of you are actually being paid to make the company look good or your boss look good. Let's face it. Others, grace under pressure. Think about that. I mean, are you the one that has this unflappable personality? Well, there's something then to be branded. Are you the one that is going to communicate important messages, or are you just simply the one that makes other people look good or lets them sleep at night? So what is it that when you go back and ask yourself what your value might have been over the course of your career, there's different questions that you can ask. What is it that has people, what is it that you've done that maybe still has people talking today? And you might have done it a year, 2 years, 10 years ago. What is it that people thank you for? How has your organization that you've worked for or your boss's life been different with you in it? So if you can't answer those really basic questions, it's going to be really hard to develop an appropriate brand. So this is all part of a process, and I'm going to try to do my best to map out what the process is so you can see where you might fit in that process. And what branding really is about is understanding what your unique career DNA is. And there are not two of you here. There's not two people in the world that has the identical career brand. It's sort of like your unique career DNA. And this is especially important when you are considering how competitive the job market is. And you have to be able to differentiate yourself from others. So if you are going to build an unstoppable career where you essentially become irreplaceable to your boss or to your departments or whatever, it's up to you, first of all, to know what your brand is and what the output of that, which is your value. And then secondly, to educate others on what that brand is. Because it's your job to get other people to remember you. So how do you want others to remember you? And if you just assume that everybody is going to know your brand, you're the person that makes people laugh, you're the person that makes people feel good, you're the person that creates harmony, whatever, good luck. If you allow someone to guess what your brand is or what your value is, you are probably going to guess wrong. So this is where the heavy lifting comes up. And I'm going to take you through a bit of a process to help you to figure out what your brand might be. So everybody in the world has a unique brand. So when we think of this fellow, oftentimes people get a bit of a chuckle about it, but he's really got a very unique brand. So would anyone like to take a guess at what you think his value might be? What do you think his brand value, the value of his brand might be? What are we guaranteed to get from him no matter what? Would anyone like to take a guess? Humor, no filter, brashness, make money, divisiveness. You're going to make them laugh, authoritative, manly. Yeah, for sure. All of those things. Very straightforward, no nonsense, the deal maker. Absolutely. So the one thing, and selfish, right? So the one thing that we are guaranteed to get from us, you guys, when we turn on the TV and we see him, probably has nothing to do with his supposed business savvy or, his time as a politician. We are actually guaranteed to get from him something that he realized got him elected, was essential for getting him elected to become the president of the United States. Does anyone want to take a guess what that was? This is really his secret sauce about who he is and what his brand is. Somebody said it. Carrie, you nailed it. Entertainment. So the one thing we are guaranteed to get from this fellow, every time, we hear him, we watch him on the news or whatever, is entertainment. So he grew up in the reality TV business. I mean, that was one of the businesses that really took his fame to another level. And so what he realized is that his value, was to stir the pot. What is he going to do to inspire more entertainment value? I mean, nobody really takes him seriously, or they didn't really take him that seriously. But what he knew to do was to stir the pot. So creating controversy, right? Whatever it would take to get people talking about him. So he knew that if he was just going to be this piece of vanilla, cake that, nobody really wanted to eat, well, that's not really going to get people excited about wanting to watch him. What was it that he did that got his voters, got the masses tuning in to watch him? Well, they knew that they were either going to laugh at him or they were going to laugh with him. And he was going to entertain them. So his brand value is, it's got something to do more with the entertainment value he provides than probably anything else, but he did it really well. And that got him elected to the most powerful role in the world. I mean, at one point. And yeah, Martha Stewart is another great example, Julie is saying. And your brand can evolve. And especially too, if something happens to you in your career, your life, and let's say it's not really something you really want to be talking about, there is an opportunity for you to continue to rebrand yourself. Branding is a lifetime endeavor. It's not just something that you do once, and you walk away from it. It is something that you should be on cue with all the time. And it's about building your level of self-awareness. So one of the things that I've noticed in the job market is that people want to hire people that know who they are and, more importantly, who they are not. There's nothing worse than hiring this career chameleon, I call them, where people don't really know who you are, but they say that they can do it all. They can do this and they can do that. Hold on a second. There's no person in the world. You might think that you're a great multitasker, and I know that a lot of admins are wonderful multitaskers, but you're not necessarily going to also be the one that's going to change the oil in my car or clean my house, right? So think about it. What is it that you can be guaranteed to rely on, to be relied on for no matter what? So it's the same thing when we look at Steve Jobs. So Steve Jobs, for those of you that don't know, was the founder of Apple. And when he was, one of the reasons that he was so successful and that his company was so successful was because he was marketing his value. He was marketing his brand. And his brand value had nothing to do with technology. Not overtly anyway. Would anyone like to take a guess as to what Steve Jobs was actually selling to the public? I mean, Apple is probably one of the largest smartphone makers in the world. Lifestyle, vision, experience, trust. Absolutely. God, you guys are on cue today, on point today. So Steve wasn't selling technology. He was selling a lifestyle, and that lifestyle was that he was going to make your life easier. So you buy anything from me, your life is going to be easier. So whether it is this phone or this iPod or this whatever, this tablet, I don't care. Whatever it is, your life is going to be made easier if you buy something from me, if you buy a product from me. And even the way that it looks is simple, right? So when you buy an iPhone or when you buy any kind of an Apple product, it looks simple, elegant, easy, because that is part of his brand. Even look how he dressed. Simple, easy. There was no fluff, no bells and whistles to him. So whether or not you agree that Apple is the best technology in the world or not has got nothing to do with why he was so successful. It was because he was really good at marketing his value, which was a lifestyle. So you want to buy something from me, your life is going to be made easier. So one of the tricks to developing a really powerful brand is this concept of connecting your head to your heart. And one of the things that's really important for you to understand is that there is no successful person in the world that hasn't made the journey from here to here. And I'm not going to say that it's an easy one, but there's no way that you will be able to identify what your brand is, what your unique brand is, unless you get really honest and authentic with yourself. You've got to be on, and it's not trying to make excuses or anything. It's really taking a hard, cold look in the mirror to say, okay, well, listen, what is it that makes my heart sing? What is it that I want others to remember me for? So ask yourself, how do you want others to remember you? That's part of your brand. And one of the things that I also tell my clients is, own your weirdness. And what that means is never making apologies for who you are, ever. And I know that there was a time in my career, by the way, I'm really excited to be here because I started my career in the recruiting industry placing administrators. So that was probably one of my favorite jobs, of course, next to this one. But one of the things that happened in my career was I got to a really low point a number of years ago, and I was without work, and I just wanted to go and hide under a rock because my self-esteem had just absolutely plummeted, and I could barely get out of bed. I mean, it was horrible. Anyway, out of the blue, one of these precipitous calls come, and Jackie, there's this opportunity that, I was wondering if you'd be interested. And by the way, if you are, the interview happens to be tomorrow. We've got the president in from Toronto. I was based in Calgary. And, would you be interested in coming in for a chat tomorrow? And I thought, okay, sure. And then all of a sudden panic set in because I didn't have a resume. Honestly, you guys, I hadn't had to do a resume, I'll bet, in over a decade. And so here I am, I'm trying to, madly scurry to get this resume done. And by the time it was finished, or by the time I had at least one draft that was legible done, it was midnight and it was over 4 pages long. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I've done so many things. This person that I'm meeting with is going to think that I'm some imbalanced lunatic, right? Unstable, and because I had done so many things. And by the way, that's one of the reasons that I started my company, was because I was owning my weirdness because I have had so many careers. But at this point, I was panicking because I thought, wow, who in the world would ever want to hire this? If you just were to look at me on the basis of a resume, you'd think that here's somebody that was exceptionally unstable. Anyway, I was too tired to fake it anymore. And I just thought, oh, whatever, maybe he won't read it. And so the next day I went to the interview, and it was a 4-hour interview, if you can believe it. And we totally hit it off. So fast forward, it turned out to be an absolutely amazing job. And a few months after I got hired, I asked my boss, I said, well, listen, I said, Jim, can you tell me, why is it that you would hire me? And he said, what do you mean? And I said, well, after that resume, I'm sure that you must have pretty much wanted to fall over because I had done so many things. He said, Jack, and I was embarrassed to tell you, but it was, when I think back, I was too tired to fake it and to fudge the resume. And he said, well, actually, Jackie, that is one of the main reasons that I hired you. And I said, what? What do you mean? He said, yeah, what that resume told me was that there wasn't anything that I wouldn't be able to throw at you that you wouldn't be able to do. So, and he was absolutely right. So the good part about owning your weirdness now in this market, I don't know if anyone can relate to that story, but if you have done a lot of things, I'll never forget in my recruiting days many years ago, we would only look at candidates that had been with a company or been with the same job for at least 3 years. And then the rest would get put to the bottom of the pile because that's who employers wanted. They valued loyalty and all of these things. Now, if you've had 3-4 jobs in a year, it doesn't matter. And it could even be 3 to 4 jobs in your current role, right? Or it could be things that you did that were completely different because the world is changing at such an accelerated pace that the benefit to changing jobs more frequently or learning new things is that you are going to make yourself more indispensable and valued to an employer. Because one of the only things that you can expect going forward with respect to your career is having to learn new things. So learnability is one of the top 5 soft skills of 2021. So please remember that. Ask yourself, what is it that you are learning today in your job? And if you're not learning anything, go out and seek out those opportunities. Otherwise, you're really putting yourself at risk of somebody else taking over your role. Now, my only caveat with going out to learn new things, and one of the new trends is this whole notion of micro-credentialing. So rather than going back for a 2-year or 4-year diploma or degree, there's a lot more people taking short-term courses, so 6 weeks, 6 months, whatever. And my only thing that I would like to caution you on is wait until you've figured out what your value is and your brand is. And then seek out opportunities to further enhance that brand, not dilute it. So to give you an example, there are a lot of people out there that just want to take whatever seems to be in vogue, whether or not it suits them. So I just want to caution you that could set you up for a tremendous fall and disappointment because your competition, once you collect all of that knowledge and information and it was like, it was okay, it wasn't fantastic, but I did it because I thought I had to. Well, your competition, once you leave those courses, are going to be those that were on path. They were on purpose. They were supposed to be taking those courses because those courses were further enhancing their brand value. So rather than just take anything for the sake of taking it, make sure, first of all, that you take some time to figure out what your value is and then say, hey, how can I become unstoppable at that? And look for opportunities to further enhance those skills. So the process, I was telling you earlier that I'm going to take you through a process. Branding kind of falls between the first and the second step of this process. So this is a process, I call it our 3-stage career transformation process that I developed about 6-7 years ago. And everybody in our programs goes through it and with much success. So I want you to consider yourselves, and I don't mean to dehumanize anybody here when I say this, but I want you to consider yourselves as though you were a product that was going to market. So when you think about that product, 3 stages, 3 steps. Number 1, you got to know what the product is. 2, you got to package it, right? And the last thing you do is you take it to market in that order. And by the way, these 3 stages apply whether you are working or not. And so when you are working, your market, or your target market, as I call it, is your employer. So, and if it's not, it's potential employers, not just anybody, but those who are going to appreciate your value. So the first step in the process is, I call it transition or self-discovery. Everybody has got to go through this. So this is what I'm going to take you through today. I'm going to take you through a model that's going to help you figure yourselves out a little bit and to build a brand, start building a brand. And this is the step where it's up to you to figure out, well, who are you, right? You're the product. Okay, so tell me, what is it that makes you so special, so unique, so extraordinary? What is it that makes you stand out from the other thousands of people that might share the same job titles? And so what happens when people go through this, it's like their clarity and their confidence skyrockets. And that is what is really required in order to take you through to the next stage, which is branding, or I call this the packaging stage. And so what we're really packaging, you guys, is not so much you, but the output of you. And the output of you is your brand's value. So your value is being able to explain to somebody, how will someone's life or someone's company be different with me in it, right? What can I be relied upon no matter what? And if you can't answer those questions, you're not really ready to go to market. And by the way, whether you are working or not, everybody should have, don't fall into the same hole that I did and not have a resume. Everybody, I think, should have at least, do update your resume once a year so that it's not as painful when it comes to the time where you actually do need one. And as well, make sure that you are constantly building your brand on LinkedIn. So I'm going to take you through an example of what one of our admin clients did to build her brand there. So this branding or packaging stage, what we're really packaging is your value. So it's the output of you. So is it that, you are going to make others look good? Are you going to let others sleep at night? Are you doing, are you like this air traffic controller that is able to juggle, 40 balls in the air at one time? Okay, if you are, great. Well, okay, well now how are we going to brand that? How are we going to package that? So in our program, what we do is we get into visual, verbal, online branding. So that's everything from your resume, your LinkedIn profile, your voicemail, how you show up, how you dress, how you use these sorts of tools. And what we look for and what employers look for, you guys, is consistency of messaging. I can't emphasize that enough. So for instance, if your resume says one thing, your LinkedIn says something else, and then you show up as somebody that doesn't match either of those, you've just immediately lost credibility. So please be conscious of your brand building efforts all the time. We have this thing called the Grizzly Den, and if any of you are interested, I would like to invite you to attend one. We do them twice a month. Very similar to television's Dragon's Den, or I guess in the US it would be Shark's Tank. But our clients present themselves to a panel of decision makers. So these are executives who they don't know. And then the executives provide them with feedback and potentially even jobs. We have people get hired this way. And one of the things that the Grizzlies evaluate these individuals on is consistency of messaging. And if their resume does not match their LinkedIn profile or does not match their pitch, they cast them aside. They said, you know what, you're not ready to go to market because I cannot help you. I don't understand your value. I don't understand your brand. Your message is not clear. So this is where, having consistent messaging on all of these types of media, that's just merely permission to play. Because remember, we are in a much more competitive job market right now. And even keeping our jobs is going to be more difficult as we go forward. So that's another reason that career branding is so vital. So the final step in the process is marketing. And this is where you go to market. Okay, so now you've done all of this work. Okay, so now I'm going to go to market. And you might think, okay, well, I don't need to do that if I'm working. I would say you absolutely do. Because what marketing is you're taking yourself to market, you're educating those who you think will appreciate your value on what your value is and what you can do for them. So when it comes to marketing, you're marketing yourself to not just anyone, but those who you think will appreciate your value. And sometimes you don't know really until you start doing some digging. One of the things that I mentioned in the last webinar I did for AAP, and I'll just mention it again, is this whole notion of IPs. So you guys write this down because I think it can really be helpful if you aren't already aware. So IP in most genres stands for intellectual property. In my world, I coined it as the two most important questions to ask anybody in any important interview or meeting or anything with anybody that matters. I stands for what's important to you, and P stands for what your pain points are. So your job as an administrator, and you probably do this unconsciously. Well, now I'm going to take it, I want to challenge you to take it up a notch and do this work consciously. Today, I want you to do at least one IP with somebody and ask them what is important to them and what are their pain points? What is it that's keeping them up at night? You know, if there was one thing that they could get off their plate that would let them sleep at night, what would that be? Right? Or, you know, what does success look like to you in a month or 3 months or in a year from now? These are all ways to gather somebody's IP, because the only way you're going to be able to effectively keep your job or acquire a new one is to be solving those pain points that are important to the person today, not 6 months from now, today. And so where COVID comes into this equation is that IPs of organizations and people, almost 100% across the board, are very different than the IPs of those same people prior to COVID, right? We had different priorities. We had different pain points. Things that were important to us then are probably not as important now. We've got different priorities. So your job, if you want to become an indispensable asset, my advice to you is to be going out and doing IPs on everybody that you work with. Next thing you know, you're going to be solving things and people are going to say, oh, how did she do this? And what happened here? You know, like this is all, you know, if you want something done, you got to go to her or you got to go to him or whatever that is. And the reason is that they won't understand what you're doing, but you will, because you are making a conscious effort, not just to build your brand, but to manage your career. And the other thing too is if any of you are in transition and you're looking for your next opportunity, the best way to get hired is to do an IP on somebody and then sell yourself on the basis of how you can solve some of those pain points, whether it's making them look good or taking certain things off their plate. I don't know how many times I've seen this, and it's been a lot, where people will go to a job and, you know, they'll show up with a job description and they'll be so proud because they check all the boxes. And then what they don't realize is that that's not really what the employer is looking for, because they might have had, you know, something blow up the night before or the week before, and now everything is in chaos. Now their IP is completely changed. Their priorities have changed, and they didn't have a chance to put that on the job description. So you guys, if you are in any important meeting before you start selling yourself, please make it about them. Make it about them and ask them, you know, well, how you can even start, a great way to start an IP. How are you doing today? You should be doing IPs every day. Well, you know, I was up all night, you know, the kids were screaming and you know, the dog got out and blah, 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 blah. Well, already now you know that person is going to be stressed. Maybe there's a way that you can make them less stressed that day. So this is a fantastic way for you to build value and to build your brand. But you can't just build it in a bubble. And this is a fabulous way to be serving others as well. Please remember that. Your brand is all about how you have been of service to others, and how will you continue to be of service to others. You got to make some conscious decisions here, you guys. Don't just show up and blindly waltz through your lives and through your careers. Otherwise, at some point in time, you're going to be knocked off the bus. And getting back on is going to be with a bunch of people that do know their value and do know their brand and that are out there doing IPs. So the model that I wanted to share with you is our career transformation model for building a really powerful brand. And so the bottom, you can't really see it. I should have put this on a different background, but the bottom of the pyramid is transition. Our job is to move you up through the stages of transformation. Now, this doesn't mean that you're going to be transforming your careers. This is just a way for you to transform the level of self-awareness that you have. And so this is also a change management model. So it's, if any of you are interested in looking at the science, look up logical levels of change and you'll see something similar to this. So the very bottom of this pyramid, we have survival and crisis. So what that means is that if you're going through something really serious in your life, so like a death, a divorce, you get COVID, God forbid, that's a time where you need to find some stability in your life first. It's not the time to be doing anything strategic and worrying about IPs or this and that, because you know what? It's practically impossible to be doing IPs on someone else when you're in that state of crisis, because the only person that is, the person that is most important to you when you are in that state of crisis is you. So when you're all worried about you, you have to find some stability first, because it is near impossible to be thinking about somebody else. And to be doing those IPs effectively requires curiosity, insatiable curiosity, and insatiable levels of caring about what is happening in the lives of others around me. So when it comes to doing those IPs, curiosity to me is absolutely invaluable. And I call it I want you to write this down if you want. It's my 50-50 formula for curiosity. And it's 50% about asking the right questions and 50% about actually caring about what the other person is saying, right? So if you're just going to ask, and maybe you've been in conversations with this, and you could just see someone is not into the conversation, and you're asking, you're going through the motions, or they're going through the motions, or asking you questions, and then they've tuned out. They really don't care. They're not listening to you. And you can tell, because they're either they're multitasking, or they're asking you the same question over and over again, and they've forgotten that they've already asked you. There's all kinds of cues. So this is why it's so important, you guys, to understand where you are on this pyramid when it comes to taking yourself to market and building your brand. So 50-50 formula, once again, for curiosity: 50% about asking the right questions, and 50% about caring about the answers. So if you think that you're struggling to actually care about what someone's saying, you might just have fallen back into this crisis stage. And all of us fall into, we move back and forth through all of these levels. So the first place where I'd like to start everybody is abilities and skills. And the question here you start with to build your brand is ask yourself, well, what is it that you can do? What is it? And, I would say that this is probably where 95% of the working population are stuck. And the reason for that is they are continuing to spin their resumes out, or just notify everybody about their value on the basis of their hard skills. You guys, you can no longer just rely on those hard skills to manage your careers, or to get a better one. So when I'm talking about hard skills, I'm talking about your education, your certifications, hard skills that you might have garnered through additional training, or on the job, or whatever. Because I can tell you, those skills are a dime a dozen, usually. And there's going to be somebody else that can do them as well or better than you. So that's not the best way to differentiate yourself. How you want to differentiate yourself is not just on what you can do with your hard skills, but also on your soft skills. It's your soft skills that make you stand out, that make you different, that make you memorable. And so your soft skills are parts of your personality. They're behaviors that are really, really hard to change. And they have been with you since the get-go, since you were small, since as long as you can probably remember. So they're parts of they're inherent parts of your personality, for instance. Maybe you've got a track record of making people laugh, or making people feel good, creating harmony around you, right? Serving others by going the extra mile, whatever that might be. These are things that people, being curious, learning things really quickly, thinking out of the box, being super creative and innovative, right? You've probably, being creative and innovative, you guys, is very hard to teach someone. And, if you are a very linear thinker, and I work with a lot of them, I can tell you that there's to try to turn a linear thinker into one that is going to think out of the box and think about all kinds of possibilities, that's rare. But you know what? Creative thinkers are what's in demand right now, because they're being hired to solve all kinds of new problems that are on the planet today, and in organizations that we never had before. So you can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it. So you have to be thinking out of the box. So we're going to get into what some of those soft skills are in a moment. So the next level on the pyramid is where you take the first step of connecting your head to your heart. And this is where you ask yourself the question, what is it that you love to do? And it's not because that is what your brand should be necessarily, or that that's what you should be doing for a living. we had and like if you like cycling, I'm not going to say, okay, well, then maybe you should be, getting a job in a cycle shop, bike shop. No, it's nothing to do with that. So I'll give you a really quick example. We had a fellow in our program. He was a middle manager, and he got laid off from his organization. And when he came into our program, he was so negative. And I knew that it was because he was really hurting. And he did not see it coming. He got laid off after being with the company for over a decade, and he just didn't see it coming. And so I thought, okay, well, when Jim comes in, I'm going to make him feel better, and I'm going to take him up this pyramid. I'm going to help him build his brand. So I said, okay, Jim, tell me, what are you passionate about? Passion. I hate that word. I said, okay, call it something different. Call it interests, hobbies. What is it that you like to do in your spare time? Nothing. And I thought, okay, great. Now what am I going to do? So I said, okay, well, what did you do on the weekend? Which one? I said, last weekend. Oh, well, I guess I was gardening with my wife. And I said, oh, so you like gardening, do you? And he said, oh, come on, no, I didn't say that. And I said, okay, let me ask you a different question. I said, what is it that you like about gardening? Oh, well, I guess it's kind of creative and I don't know, it's kind of nurturing or something. And I said, oh, so nurturing is important to you, is it? And he said, oh, come on now, I didn't say that. And I said, okay, Jim, I said, let me ask you a different question. And I knew his whole heart and mind was at his last job. So I said, go back to that last job. And all of a sudden his ears perked up. And I said, Jim, I said, can you think of a time where you might have nurtured something there that resulted in some big win? And he kind of looked at me funny. Anyway, there was this long pause, and I'll bet it had to be 45 seconds. Finally, I looked over and I'm thinking, like, what the heck is going on? And I could see the poor guy's lips start to quiver. And I said, I thought, oh my gosh, now what? All of a sudden, Jim put up his head and he said, you know what? When I think back at my last job, he said, yes, I absolutely can. He said, when I look back at my last job, it's like everybody that worked for me, I nurtured. They went on to do greater things than I did, every single one of them. And I was always the one that was getting overlooked for promotions. One became the president of this division, one became a VP, one started his own business, and all of a sudden, Jim started to cry. And he said, I had no idea that I had any value whatsoever. And I said, okay, Jim, I said, but did your boss know that about you? He said, what do you mean? Know what? I said, did your boss know that you were the maker of these superstars at your former employer? He said, I don't think so. And I said, well, you know what? I said, you got to cut them some slack because that wasn't their fault. That was yours. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, when you get a job, and if you have a job now, the most important thing to do is to, first of all, figure out your brand and what your value is. And then make sure you educate everybody around you, above you, and below you as to what that value is and what you want to be known as the go-to person for. That is how you build an unstoppable career and you become indispensable to the organization. But if, like I said, it's your job to be educating others, and it doesn't mean being really, really harsh and egocentric and saying, oh, I want to tell you what I'm really good at. It's got nothing to do with that. It's gently educating others on what you want to be known as the go-to person for. How is it that you want to be of service? Hey, well, if ever, you need help with planning, those parties or those events, I've got a lot of background. I'm happy to help you. I'm actually pretty good at it. Gee, I didn't know that you could do that. That's interesting. Next thing you know, you got everybody in the company doing it for you, so advocating for you. So the beautiful part about this is that if and when you do leave the organization and you have built a really powerful brand, what's going to happen then is you're going to have everybody who's still there advocating for you. You're not going to have to go after them and try to convince them as to what your brand is because they're already going to know. You've already proven it. So this is why this work is so powerful. So the next level on the pyramid are your values and beliefs, and this is helping you to get clarity on what's important to you. And so if what's important to you is not important to who you're working for or with, you're not going to be happy or successful. That is something that's really important to know. So then of course, the next level on the pyramid is identity, and that's helping you to get clear on who you are and in 5 seconds or less. So you guys, this is helping you to get clear on this entire pyramid and tell somebody who you are in 5 seconds or less. So the work that we do today, I'm going to take you through a few examples. We try to come up with something that we call a North Star for you. So one of the North Stars of one of our admin professionals was the C-suite enhancer. And I'm going to tell you about that in a minute, but I'll tell you, she actually got hired for that. She was in transition, she got hired for that. And it was such an easy way for her to convince others of what her value is, because she had this track record of supporting C-suite professionals and making them look good, making the organization thrive. Most of those organizations and CEOs or presidents or whatever that she supported would have probably fallen apart without her. So she called herself the C-suite enhancer. I just really love that example. So then the top of the pyramid is your purpose, and that's helping you to get clear on, okay, so what is it that I should be doing rather than what I can do? Please know that there's a lot of things that admins can do, but what is it that you want to be known as the go-to person for? If you could have me remember you for something, what would that be? What would that be? How would you want me to refer you? So this is why it's so important that you go back to this pyramid. I will be sending you this, the slides. I'll send the slides actually to Catherine, and then if you wanted to watch the recording, you can also do that. So example North Stars of some of the admin professionals we've had in our program. This is kind of funny, but we've had people call themselves the Den Mother. My admin is actually called the Den Mother, and I would be absolutely lost without her. The Connector, the Brand Ambassador, the Maximizer, the Harmonizer, the Diplomat, the Peacemaker, the Stabilizer, the Air Traffic Controller, and then of course the C-suite enhancer. So I'm going to show you an example of that C-suite enhancer. I mentioned earlier that I wanted to share with you what 5 of the top soft skills are, or the top 5 soft skills of 2021. And these are some of the things that people are actually getting paid for, and they're also getting raises for. So if you're working, it's important for you to know this. Creativity, collaboration. We can't do anything alone anymore. So if you want to demonstrate your brand, start showing how you can collaborate with others within your organization or with volunteer groups like this one. Learnability, it's absolutely huge. And like I said, that's because the shelf life of skills is diminishing. Multicultural awareness, we're now working in a global economy, transparent global economy, and social skills, social perceptiveness, things that a computer cannot do. So the future of work is very much about assuming control for your own career management. You guys are going to be rewarded for the value you bring versus how loyal you were in your last job. This is kind of a harsh reality, but it's true. Career security is replacing job security, but in order to have that, you need to know your value or your brand, your secret sauce, as I call it. Because remember, a job will be ripped away from you in a second, but knowing your brand stays with you for life. That value, the value of your brand stays with you for life. So that is really what you want to be paid for. That, to me, is what your career nirvana should be. A lot more discontinuous career paths, people taking multiple jobs even in the same year. A lot more contractors, people going out on their own. There are no more jobs for life, certainly not with the same organization typically. Innovation is replacing, that should be 2021. Innovation is replacing a lot more jobs, and you have to be able to demonstrate learnability and soft skills, and this is probably one of the best times ever to create your own job, or a better one with wherever you are. So ways to build your brand, you guys. This is a course I teach all on its own, but this is just kind of a quick summary. Once you understand what your brand is, there's ways that you can build it. So blogging, I don't know if any of you like to write articles, but I'm going to show you an example of one in a moment. Terrific. Vlogging, using social media. If any of you have a great, like to speak, use it. If you've got a great screen presence and you want to teach others something, the basics of Microsoft Office or whatever that might be, there's value in that. Volunteering for organizations like this one, like AAP, fantastic, or others. It demonstrates your value to them. It's an opportunity for you to demonstrate your value, your brand's value. Supporting professional associations, micro-credentialing, upskilling, but don't just take anything. Figure out, first of all, spend some time identifying what your brand is and then look at opportunities to further enhance that brand rather than dilute it. Otherwise, you're just going to be shooting yourself in the foot. Speaking, YouTube, if any of you are interested in having a YouTube channel, I mean, we've had overnight sensations happen because of people's ability to, you know, they were nobody and then all of a sudden they have a YouTube channel and boom, everybody knows them and everybody wants to watch them. Great way to build your brand. Another way to build your brand is to teach or educate or mentor others. And make sure that once you are working, or if you are working, you guys educate everyone around you as to what that brand is. How do you want them to remember you? And then show it. Go around and start doing those IPs. Do those IPs and make sure that they are aware of what your value is. So branding checklist. And then I'm just going to show you a quick example before we leave. Please follow the higher landing branding pyramid that I just went through. That'll be a great place to start to build your brand. And do you know your wow factors? So wow factors are simply words that we use to start building your brand. And your North Star. So your North Star. So are you that C-suite enhancer, for instance? Are you clear on your value? And is your value illustrated in your North Star? And do others remember you in the same way you want to be remembered? How do you know? Ask them. And is your branding messaging consistent? So please look to see if your resume, your voicemail, your LinkedIn profile, your, you know, all of that is consistent. Because if it's not, you're giving somebody a reason to question your credibility. Help others within the organization. And make sure that you educate your employer as to what your value is and do IPs. There's not a better way to be of service than continuing to go out there and do IPs on everybody that you know that matters, right? Even your family members. We've had people do IPs on their family members. This is an example of somebody that recently went through our program. Her name is Bonnie McGinnis. I'm going to show you her LinkedIn profile in just a moment. I'm sure she'd love to hear from you, by the way. And I will tell her about AAP because I think she should be a member. But she's a corporate advisor and an assistant to the CEO of a company that she just landed with late last year. And she referred to her brand as the C-suite enhancer. She was the one that I was telling you about that had this ability to make anyone in the C-suite look good. So I'm just going to show you quickly what her brand was. So this is something that she did to build her brand. So this is her LinkedIn profile. I thought she did a really good job. But then she also did some blogging to further educate her network as to how she wanted others to remember her. And once again, she wanted a job in the C-suite. That's where she wants to stay. That's her sweet spot. So she goes, you know, do you know what a great C-suite executive support person does? So what does she do? She writes this article. You know, has something gone wrong that has tarnished the C-suite's image? Is there a solution to turn that around? And then what she does is she talks about why you need a C-suite enhancer. So this is just one example, and it's short, sweet. I'll tell you, blogs, the way I teach blogs, it shouldn't be more than 500 words or less. Okay, so I just wanted as well to, let me just see here. I can't seem to. If any of you are interested, I just wanted to briefly mention that we have a 10-week boot camp that you're welcome to apply for. You can take it at your own pace, but we get into it's the most comprehensive career management program that I know of, and it'll help you to build a really solid brand. And as well, there's a discount that we're offering for AAP members of 15%. So that's pretty significant. A couple of things that you might be interested in is, well, the boot camp, as well as we do have a one-day knowing your brand workshop, and that's about 6 hours. It actually is about a day and a half, but if you get through the first 6 hours, that'll be sufficient. So yeah, so your career is your business, manage it like a CEO. Please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. And I just, I know that our time is almost up. We've got time for a few questions if anyone would like to ask.
Jackie, there was a question on the chat. It says, create your own job, like creating a new position at a company or creating a new company concept?
Oh, creating a job within your own organization. So creating another one where you are working, or a better one. So if you want to get a promotion, it's about demonstrating your value and your brand. But if somebody doesn't know what your brand is, how can they possibly know? We've all been there, where we just assume that our bosses know what we can provide to them. But it's I wish life was that simple. Because if you make someone guess what your value is, they're going to probably not guess entirely correctly. And so you're really shortchanging yourself when you do that. Any other
Fabulous.
questions? What do you guys think? Any feedback for me? It's a lot to pack into about 55 minutes, but I've tried.
Someone asked what your IP is, Jackie.
Oh, what my IP is. Oh my gosh. Well, COVID, I'm trying to expand my business. There you go. That's an important pain point right across the country, and all of the technical aspects of that. Oh, don't get me started. That's another conversation, but thanks for asking. So somebody's asking what IP, is there somebody that would like to explain what IP is besides me? I want to see if you've understood. IP stands for the two most important questions to ask anybody in any important meeting. I is what's important to you, and P, what are your pain points? Wonderful. Okay, well, if any of you are interested in reaching out to me, please do so. Probably the best is just you can email me at info@higherlanding.com. It's probably the easiest one.
Perfect. Thank you, Jackie. So on behalf of AAP National Board, I would like to thank all of you guys for joining us in today's session. We hope that you found it useful, insightful, and inspirational. Special shout out to Jackie and the Higher Landing team for giving us some great insights on career branding for admin professionals in 2021. For AAP members, Jackie's next session is on August 25th. She talks more about value as an admin professional in a post-pandemic economy. For more information about Higher Landing and how to become an AAP member, please visit our website at www.canadianadmin.ca. Wishing all of you a lovely rest of the day, and stay safe and stay healthy. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.